You've spent an hour with someone and walked away feeling like you ran a marathon, not because anything bad happened, not because there was conflict or tension or drama, just a normal conversation, but something about it pulled energy out of you that you didn't have to spare. And then there are other people. You spend 4 hours with them and walk away feeling more awake than when you arrived, more like yourself, like something that was compressed inside you finally had room to breathe. And the difference between those two experiences is so stark, so physical, so undeniable, that you've probably spent time wondering what it actually is, because it doesn't always map onto whether you like the person. You can love someone and find them exhausting. You can barely know someone and find them effortless. It doesn't map onto whether the conversation was deep or shallow, long or short, positive or negative. The drain happens regardless of the content sometimes, and the recharge happens in ways you can't always predict or explain. So what is actually happening? The first thing to understand is that every social interaction requires your brain to run a very specific and energy-intensive process. When you're with another person, your brain is doing something called social monitoring. It's reading facial expressions, tracking tone of voice, predicting what the other person is about to say or do, scanning for signals of approval or disapproval, calculating how you're being perceived, and simultaneously managing what you say and how you say it. This process runs constantly and automatically in every interaction. But here's what most people don't realize. The intensity of that process varies dramatically depending on who you're with. With some people, your brain runs that process at a low, almost effortless level. The environment feels predictable, the signals are easy to read, you don't have to calculate very much because the interaction feels safe and consistent. Your brain stays relatively relaxed. With other people, that same process runs at full intensity. You're scanning harder, calculating more, second-guessing your responses, managing your presentation more carefully. You might not even be aware it's happening, but your nervous system is working significantly harder, and that work has a cost. The second reason is something almost nobody talks about honestly. Some people require you to be someone slightly different than you actually are. Not dramatically, not in an obvious way, but there's a quiet performance happening. A version of yourself that's a little more careful, a little more edited, a little more managed than the version that exists when nobody is watching. Maintaining that performance takes energy, even when it's small. Even when you've gotten so good at it that it feels automatic, because your brain is running two tracks simultaneously, who you actually are and who this person needs or expects you to be. And the gap between those two things is where the exhaustion lives. The people who recharge you are usually the people around whom that gap disappears entirely. You don't have to manage the distance between who you are and who you're presenting. You just exist. And existing, it turns out, is extraordinarily restful compared to performing. The third reason goes into territory that most psychology content completely ignores. Your nervous system has a memory. Every relationship you've had has left a kind of residue in your body. People who feel safe, consistent, and warm over time actually begin to regulate your nervous system in their presence. Being around them triggers a physiological response of calm because your body has learned through repeated experience that this person is safe. People who have been unpredictable, critical, demanding, or emotionally volatile in your experience, even subtly, leave a different kind of residue. Your body learned to stay alert around them, to monitor more carefully, to be ready. And that readiness, even when nothing is happening, even when the conversation is perfectly pleasant, consumes energy at a rate your conscious mind never notices but your body tracks precisely. This is why you can leave an interaction with someone feeling mysteriously tired when nothing went wrong. Nothing went wrong in the conversation, but your nervous system spent the entire time braced for something that never arrived. And bracing is exhausting. The fourth reason is the one that tends to genuinely surprise people. The interactions that drain you most are often the ones where you feel the least seen, not ignored necessarily, not disrespected, just not quite met. You say something that matters to you and it lands flat. You share something and the response misses the point entirely. You try to connect and the connection doesn't quite happen. Your brain keeps trying. It reaches out again, reframes, finds another angle, attempts the connection a different way. And every attempt that doesn't land costs something, because connection isn't just a social nicety for human beings. It's a biological need, and the effort of reaching for it and not quite finding it is one of the most quietly draining experiences a person can have. The people who recharge you aren't always the most interesting or the most impressive. They're the ones where the reaching and the landing happen easily, where you say something and it meets something real in the other person, where the connection doesn't require effort because it's simply there. That ease isn't chemistry in some mysterious, unknowable sense. It's two nervous systems that have found each other's frequency. And when that happens, being together doesn't cost anything. It gives something back. Here's what all of this means practically. The people who drain you are not bad people. In most cases, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just people whose presence requires your nervous system to work in a way that costs more than it returns. And the people who recharge you are not magical. They're people whose presence allows your nervous system to do less, to relax, to exist, to stop monitoring so hard. And recognizing the difference, not as a moral judgment but as simple information about your own energy, is one of the most useful things you can do for the quality of your life. Because you only have a finite amount of that energy, and where you spend it is one of the most consequential decisions you make, usually without realizing you're making it at all. So ask yourself this. The people closest to you right now, do they return your energy or consume it? And when did you last give yourself permission to let that answer matter?